There is a Cheyenne proverb that states, "A nation is not conquered until the hearts of its women are on the ground. Then it is done, no matter how brave its warriors or strong its weapons." You're listening to Creep It Real, and today we continue our coverage on the missing and murdered Indigenous women of North America with the stories of Heather Cameron Holler and Khadijah Britton. Hey everybody. Hello, it's Ashley.
Hello. And Shy.
We're Creep It Real. And today we have... What's wrong?
My hair.
Oh, I was like, look at mine. And I haven't washed it since I think like Thursday or Wednesday.
Well, it's healthy for your hair,
Yeah, whatever.
Maybe.
Okay, so today's episode is going to be quite a bummer. Sorry to tell you. I guess that's kind of leading with the super negative, but it is. So we are revisiting our missing and murdered Indigenous women topic, and of course, that's not going to be something that cheers us up.
Right.
But it's important, so we're doing it. So today we're going to cover a couple women, mainly Heather Cameron Holler and Khadijah Britton. These are two women that have gone missing out of California, and so we're in the U.S. this time for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. I wanted to bring some facts to you regarding this topic in America, since last time I brought you some facts about Canada. So under the 2005 Violence Against Women Act, a national study was authorized by Congress that found that between 1979 and 1992, homicide was the third leading cause of death among Native females aged 15 to 34. And that 75% of those women were killed by family members or acquaintances. So Title IX of the Act required the National Institute of Justice to conduct a national baseline research study on violence against Native American and Alaska Native women, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking and murder, and evaluate the effectiveness of federal, state, tribal, and local responses to this violence against these women, and then propose recommendations to improve the effectiveness of the responses. So the report was released in May of 2016, and it found that 84.3% of women have experienced violence in their lifetime, including sexual, physical, stalking, and psychological aggression. Also, 39.8% have experienced these types of violence in the past year. So compared to non-Hispanic white women, Native American and Alaska Native women are 1.2 times more likely to have experienced violence during their life and 1.7 times more likely to have experienced it during the past year. So as we know, that's something that's common with everybody. And so this is just an elevated statistic for Native women and Alaska Native women, which, to be honest, the statistics alone for all women are pretty horrifying. So to see that it's something that's even more elevated for these women is pretty scary. I mean, personally, I think we have all experienced some type of violence or stalking or abuse in some way. And psychological aggression is something that's kind of overlooked as well. And that's something that is prevalent as hell and can be almost more damaging than physical abuse because you can't see it with your own eyes. Anyway, we'll see some of that happening today with the people that we speak about. The study also found that medical care was the most common service that was needed by the victims of lifetime violence, and among the women seeking services, 38% were unable to get the help that they need. The Grand Ronde domestic violence prevention coordinator, Anne Falla, said that intimate partner violence is not always limited to just physical abuse, like I said. She says abuse is also emotional in nature. It is easy to discredit people who report it by making them look bad. For example, people will say the person making the claim has dementia or blame past drug use, even if it was 20 years ago. It is really hard in this region as well because those types of comments live on with a person. So it is hard to climb out of that, and they are not seen as credible. Oh, sorry, I'm just really?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Well, this is why it's super important not to romanticize a domestic abuse relationship or lie about it or,
Right.
the things certain people do to play the victim and get attention, because it really makes it extremely difficult for those who are actual victims to get the care that they need and to speak out
Right.
too.
And, as we'll talk about in these indigenous communities, there is a lot of substance abuse. There's a lot of
Oh yeah.
unemployment that leads to that kind of perpetual cycle. And then there is a lot of violence that is perpetuated against the women of the communities. That it's kind of like that's not kind of like a cycle, it's a cycle. It's a cycle of abuse where, parents had addiction problems, they were abusive, and it continues on with their children. I mean, pretty much every single case that I've looked into, there's something like that going on. So the first person that we're going to talk about today is Heather Cameron Holler. And she, at the time of her disappearance, was a 28-year-old mother of 4. She had 3 girls and 1 boy. She was from the Grand Ronde Indian tribe who went missing on August 18th in 2012 in Redding, California, which is in Shasta County. So Heather was 5'6" and 115 pounds. At the time, she was living apart from her estranged husband of 8 years, Sean Cameron, as well as their 3 daughters that they had together.
Yeah, she had a boy too, right?
Yes, she did have a boy as well.
Okay. And she had just celebrated her 28th birthday.
Right. Her cousin, Shannon Hauberg, Shannon, I hope I said that right, has said that Heather wasn't exactly given the best opportunities in life, as growing up, her parents both struggled with drug and alcohol addiction, and she went back and forth from Grand Ronde in Redding, California. She says that although growing up was hard, she also recalls the 2 of them spending their summers riding dune buggies, fishing, boating, and spending a lot of time outdoors. And she says that Heather knew the area well and loved to wander through the woods and be in nature. On August 11th, her birthday, it was a week before her disappearance, that was her last visit that she had with her daughters. So apparently on the day that she had disappeared, she had just checked out of a drug rehabilitation program and was picked up by her ex-boyfriend, a man named Daniel Lusby, who is not a great guy.
No, he has quite the criminal history, right? So
yeah.
He had 9 felonies, 4 of which were reduced to just misdemeanors, which is unfortunate, since that April 12th. And he had also been in police custody 11 times. He spent time on the Shasta County Most Wanted list as well. His charges include theft, car theft, and possession of methamphetamine.
Mm-hmm. So probably the last person that you want your family member picked up from rehab.
Yeah. With. And she had, did you already say she's checked herself out? It wasn't even like something, someone at the facility had said, okay, you're good to go. Yeah.
Okay. So she was last seen heading to Keswick Dam, which is a remote area 20 minutes outside of Redding, California, with Daniel Lusby. And at 2:50 p.m., Heather made 3 911 calls from the vicinity of Keswick Dam off of Highway Vehicle Park using his phone.
Right.
So she told the operator that she was on foot and had been drugged with heroin and needed assistance. She also said that the man who did this to her had a gun but had thrown it off of the mountain. And her calls were being dropped a lot because the area is really, what is the word?
Secluded?
Secluded. There's a lot of mountains, obviously, and reception is poor. So her calls kept getting disconnected and she would call back again. And so that's the reason why she made multiple calls. On the 911 calls, there was at least one male voice heard in the background, but it's thought, and this is just kind of rumors, I guess, it's thought that there were actually multiple men in the background. After her last call to 911, she was actually never seen or heard from ever again. So the police sent out some investigators after those 911 calls, and the initial search, which included all-terrain vehicles from the Bureau of Land Reclamation and a California Highway Patrol helicopter, searched the immediate area where she had said she was, and she was not found. They could not find any evidence of her or any suspicious activity. Though I would say the 911 calls may be a tad bit suspicious, just a little.
Yeah, they never recovered the cell phone either. So,
yeah.
I mean, because he had said that she walked off and took the phone with her.
Right. So nothing happened. And then so that was August
18th,
18th.
yeah.
So August 18th, and then on September 4th, which was nearly 2.5 weeks later, Heather's estranged husband reported her missing because he hadn't heard from her in 2.5 weeks. He says, as bad as she's ever gotten, she's never not checked on her kids. She's a great mom. She's made bad decisions in the last year, but she never didn't contact him or contact her children.
Right.
On September 9th, her family was notified of her disappearance, and at that point, authorities launched an extensive, albeit extremely late, missing persons investigation with multiple searches of the area the following week. They also said the family members went out and searched on foot and with ATVs, but nobody found any sign of Heather at all. There was a little bit of, I guess, like they said, or what I read from her family was there was a little bit of disturbance on the side of a cliff, I believe. But, like, you know, at this point, 2.5 weeks later, I don't know what you can really determine, you know, is her
Right.
or something else. Now, a month after her disappearance, her food stamp card was found near Coram Ranch Road, which was near Trail 3 on this mountain. And so the distance from Coram Ranch Road, where her food stamp card was found, and the Keswick Dam Road, where she had been when she had called 911, was about 21 minutes by car. And so it was about 11.2 miles away from where...
That's quite a walk.
Yeah. So that's either quite a walk or... she was driven, obviously, by car, because he did have a truck that they were last seen in. So the fact that her food stamp card was found on that trail is probably a clue about somewhat where she had been taken or where she is.
Right.
But, you know, that's just all they got. That's the only thing they had.
What's really, you know, of course, Lusby would be the primary suspect, and he was interviewed 3 separate times, but was never officially arrested.
Right.
So, he picked her up from rehab, and there was 3 phone calls placed saying that he had drugged her and was going to hurt her, essentially, and
right.
they're just like, oh, okay, you answered our questions. Have a nice day.
I don't know if it's just a matter of insufficient evidence and they're thinking they don't want to squander their chances in the future. But, you know, he's obviously the person of interest to this day, and I can only think that they're just waiting on... They either don't care, you know, or they don't care enough, or they're waiting on just the right... tip to come in, or the right a witness of this to come forward so that they can actually charge him with something that they have evidence for. But still, it's got to be extremely frustrating for her family to have no answers whatsoever, and then this piece of trash is still just out and about living his life.
Yeah,
when he was clearly the last person.
He is a piece of trash.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So I mean, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming circumstantial evidence, but circumstantial evidence is not going to be able to get you probably charged with, you know, murder in court. So her family states that although she did struggle with addiction, she was an amazing mother. She always kept in contact with her family, her children. Obviously, this is not something that she had ever done before, where she would just completely disappear and not contact any of them. So I know that when there is a history of drug use, that a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction is to be that these people just ran off and left their entire lives and families behind. But that is, according to her estranged husband and her family, completely out of character for her. So an interesting thing that happened 1 week prior to her 911 calls and disappearance was that Heather and Daniel Lusby were involved in a car accident in this exact same area where in this exact same area where she claimed she was on the 911 calls, where he had rolled his truck on the trail. At that point, when they rolled the truck, a week prior to her disappearance, they had called law enforcement to assist in getting their truck off the trail. So they had actually called the police. So that day, whenever she called 911, she said that when she said she was kidnapped, she said that they were in the exact same spot where he had rolled the truck a week prior, but they didn't really know the exact location for some reason where the truck had been rolled.
Right.
Okay. So finding her EBT card just south of Coram Road or Coram Ranch is significant as it seemed to match up with the GPS of her last phone call. And also, there was a cyclist that saw Lusby walking up Motion Creek on the 18th. He said he was on heroin and his girlfriend had called 911 on him for injecting her with heroin, and he was expecting law enforcement to come. This bicyclist said that he didn't seem panicked, like he had just murdered her or something. But at the same time, I don't know how panicked somebody on heroin can be. I'm not really sure. I'm not really positive.
They're pretty slow going.
Right. Now, I don't know if that means that he had already killed her at that moment, or if he found her after that encounter with the cyclist and then took her somewhere later that night. We obviously do not know. There was also, right 2 days before her disappearance. Now, this isn't an Indigenous woman, but it is a man who went missing. His name was Court Jones. He went missing on August 16th in the exact same area. So he was last seen by his mother entering the residence on Joaquin Way when she dropped him off. At approximately 3 p.m., he was carrying a black and red Giant brand bicycle frame. 1 hour later, he called his mother for a ride home, and when she arrived, he wasn't at the location, and the people there told her that Court had left on foot. He hasn't been seen since. So, yeah, okay. So that's just extremely suspicious, and those two cases have kind of been tied together because of how close they were in time and also in location. I know I spoke with Shannon Halberg a little bit myself, Heather's cousin, and she said that she knows that Court's family would appreciate to be just a little bit of information to be given out about him. And I had already seen that this case was so close to hers that I had put it in here. So she was saying that at a vigil for her cousin and for Court Jones that people tell her it's been 5 years and she needs to just get over it, which I find to be, one of those things that's like, who are these people?
Maybe if they had a resolution or a straightforward answer as to what happened to her, but without knowing those things, how do you just let it go?
No, you can't. I mean, who in the world would be able to let it go when your family members disappeared under extremely suspicious circumstances?
Right.
Clearly something nefarious went on here and nothing is being developed about it. Like, I just don't understand how people can do this. So, okay.
Now, I don't know if you want me to say it now, but, she can be legally declared dead now.
Yeah. Which can help with her family and her children receiving
money from the tribe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in just research, I found just a little more information about Daniel Lusby. So, I mean, we already talked about it, but he stole vehicles. He tried to steal people's identities. He's just a really piece of trash. Okay, so in regards to Heather Cameron, there's an anonymous tip line that you can call that's 530-378-4491. There's also 2 rewards available. One is through her tribe in Grand Ronde, Oregon. It's for $5,000. The number there is 541-921-2927. And another is through Shasta County Secret Witness, and that number is 530-243-2319. It is also $5,000, and they have an online tip area of their website at www.scsecretwitness.com. Obviously, there's somebody out there who, at least one person out there, who knows what happened here and isn't speaking. And
right.
Daniel Lusby is not a brilliant man who was able to pull off a kidnapping and possibly likely murder without anyone else knowing about it or telling anyone. There's somebody out there that knows.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure he's the type to brag to at least a friend or a couple friends about what happened.
Yeah.
Or just have it casually pop up in conversation, especially if they're using drugs together.
Right. And like we've seen these types of people countless times, and they always feel compelled to tell somebody what they've done. And
Right.
whoever you are out there that knows what has happened and you're pretending like you don't just to protect this garbage human, I guarantee that he would do it to you if he needed to. So let's not let's not protect this garbage human. So Shannon Halberg told me in August it will be 7 years that Heather has been missing, and they have never given up in their search to find her and what happened to her. Obviously, I completely can empathize with that, and I really do hope that at some point out there somebody will have some crisis of conscience, and say something to somebody. There are multiple ways you can go about it where you don't have to say who you are. You don't have to let Daniel Lusby know who has told anybody.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, it's kind of like a lot of these stories where that's really the extent of the information that we have on the situation with Heather Cameron Haller.
Right. And there's nothing more to really go into unless you wanted to research maybe Lusby's life extensively, which I don't know why you would.
Right. And just the research that we've done into Heather's case, we found, like we've already discussed, numerous instances of him being arrested for grand theft auto, for methamphetamine possession, for like weapon possession, for theft of possessions and identity theft. He's not a great guy. How many times can we say it?
Right.
He's definitely, he has the key to finding out what happened to Heather. So hopefully one day something will develop of this. Okay, so the next case that we are going to talk about is Khadijah Britton. She was a 23-year-old woman from the Wailaki tribe in the Round Valley tribal community of California. This one is also fairly damning as far as what the heck happened the day she went missing. Right.
So growing up, she was actually a pretty promising young woman. She had a bright future ahead of her, it seemed. She excelled at high school sports, especially basketball. She was the daughter of Jerry and Connie Britton and a proud member of the Round Valley Indian tribe, as you stated. And she was well liked by numerous people. She was described as extremely loyal and protective. Her cousins absolutely loved her, said her smile could brighten up a room. She was always wanting to play sports with the younger cousins, so she wasn't just a throwaway youth. She seemed to have a lot going for her growing up.
And she, I know that she had like a 3.7 GPA in high school.
Yeah.
She played on the varsity basketball team, like you said, all through her senior year. She had talked to her stepmom about going into maybe like kinesiology or some sort of athletic discipline in college. She definitely had a lot of promise and goals.
I would say, unfortunately, when it came post-graduation and the choice between college and partying came up, Khadijah got into partying and taking drugs on a regular basis.
Yeah, she had kind of fallen in with a less than ideal crowd. Okay, let's go into him in a minute, minute. So on the day that Khadijah went missing, it was the night of February 7th, 2018, and a witness reported seeing a man named Neggie Fallis IV.
Is it Neggie or Neggie?
Oh, is it Neggie?
I don't know. I heard it Neggie, but maybe you're right.
Okay, if it's Neggie, okay, fine. Okay. So a witness reported seeing Neggie Fallis IV, which was her ex-boyfriend, and his new girlfriend, Antonia Bautista Dawson, pull up in his black Mercedes to the home of a friend where Khadijah Britton was staying. Then they saw Khadijah and Fallis arguing outside of her friend's home, and then she was seen last leaving the house with Fallis at gunpoint, who apparently forced her into the vehicle, and they left. And geez Louise, Khadijah has not been seen or heard from since, and obviously police consider Fallis this... Is it Fallis? Because that sure does sound bad. Okay. The prime suspect in her disappearance, obviously.
This happened less than a week after she had actually went to police and reported that he tried to kill her with a hammer.
Right. So, okay. So, it is, okay. It's just such a mess. Okay, so...
Tumultuous relationship.
Obviously, he's the prime suspect in her disappearance, though no charges have been filed against him regarding Khadijah's disappearance due to, again, insufficient evidence. However, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office said that he was sentenced on December 4th of last year to 4 years in prison for being a felon in possession of a firearm. So that's how they ended up kind of getting him, but it still is not in any way justice for Khadijah. So, on December 22nd of last year, the woman who was last seen with him and Khadijah, Antonio Bautista Dawson, his current girlfriend, she turned herself in and pled guilty to being an accomplice to Neggie in the crime of being a felon in possession of a firearm. So the reason this even came up was because of the search and the investigation into Khadijah's disappearance. So let's talk about Fallis, this guy.
Right.
Okay, I mean, could there be a more fitting name for this guy?
Growing up, his mother said he was a quiet, shy boy with no issues, and he was around a decent family environment. So I don't know if she's probably wondering how this all happened.
I think probably she's wrong because his father. His father, Neggie Fallis III, was in and out of the picture for much of his childhood and has been charged with at least 5 Mendocino County domestic violence cases.
Okay.
Obviously showing a cycle of abuse that he has now perpetuated. The Glenn County District Attorney's Office brought its first case against Fallis, Khadijah's ex-boyfriend, in 2000 when he was 20, a felony charge for manufacturing meth. In August of 2012, he was convicted of possession of a controlled substance, endangering the health of a child, possession of drug paraphernalia, and carrying a switchblade longer than 2 inches, and was sentenced to 6 years in state prison. In 2012, a report filed by Glenn County narcotics detectives described the deplorable conditions of an apartment where he lived with his 4 children, ages 7 months to 8 years, and they lived in a home that had a bathroom with human feces smeared on the shower doors, garbage, clothing, and more human feces on the balcony, dirty mattresses on the floor without sheets. In the master bedroom, investigators found a glass meth pipe in one of the dresser drawers, tucked alongside clothing for a little girl. There were knives, marijuana, and more pipes scattered throughout the apartment, and according to the report, most of this was easily within reach of a child.
So this is just like the worst of the worst classic meth head environment. Just absolute chaos.
I mean, he literally told investigators that he smoked meth every day. Okay, he told them he was the sole provider. He was the sole provider for his children, and he smoked meth every day. So, ooda lolly. His children were placed in protective custody when he was arrested before being taken back to Cavello by a family member. And after a few short years, he was released early from the dual vocational institution in San Joaquin County in 2014, and that's when he moved to Mendocino County where Khadijah lived. And as we know, as I'm sure we should all know by now, our prison system is a complete and utter failure. Rehabilitation is next to impossible once incarcerated, and when he was released, he was more volatile than he ever had been before.
Right.
So that's when he met Khadijah, and like we said, she went from being super ambitious, smart, athletic, had done great in school. She had a 3.17 GPA.
Right.
In the high school where she went to school, it was the Round Valley High School, and according to the latest figures, more than 80% of the students at this high school are considered socioeconomically disadvantaged, and graduation rates are regularly well below state average. But despite those factors, she excelled athletically, socially, and in academics.
We just know, too, that, cities that are impoverished and socioeconomically disadvantaged, the dropout rate is way higher. Drug use is extremely prevalent. Violence and crime, everything seems to kind of skyrocket in these situations.
Yeah, and there's really not a lot of assistance that they can find. Yeah. It's unclear when Khadijah's relationship with Fallis began, but soon after it did, the job of taking care of his children became her job,
Right.
says her friends and family.
And she
So
seemed really dedicated to doing that too.
right. They said that she would regularly do all the kids' laundry at her father's house. She would cook the kids' meals, put them to bed, pick them up from school. And a spokesperson for this organization, Red Women Rising, she says that's another factor that you have to consider, that the children were involved, which makes it a whole other situation altogether, because then she becomes their mother figure, and being in this abusive environment and getting out of it becomes much harder whenever you have that aspect. So this Red Women Rising project is dedicated to uplifting the voices of urban Indian survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault through increasing awareness around urban Indian women's domestic violence issues and enhancing survivors' access to domestic violence services. They also aim to enhance provider capacity to care for Native American survivors of abuse by providing access to culturally responsive resources and training opportunities. By bringing these issues of unbalanced access to resource, which we know there's not the same amount of access to these types of programs for Indigenous women, which is another reason why their abuse and murder rates are so skyrocketing high.
Right.
So this Red Women Rising is a really great organization that's trying to help balance this out and help these women in a way that allows them to climb out of these terribly volatile domestic violence situations. The spokesperson says it's a cultural thing for Native women to take care of our families. We take care of our children and our community, and we support our partners. Often with women in domestic violence, they're hoping to change that person. They're hoping to be that light in his life. And Native women, we always put everybody before ourselves. That's just our traditional value of us taking care of our family. So as she began to spend more time with Fallis, her confidence seemed to fade, her father said. He said, yeah, I could see that he changed her. She was still her same happy self, but she was scared to get growled at if she did something wrong because he was so possessive.
It got to the point where, they were even driving around town one time during like a snowstorm, and they saw Khadijah walking along the road, had offered her a ride, and she declined in fear of Neggie or whatever getting mad at her, even though
her own father,
right? Because it just doesn't, because it was another male,
Oh God, talk about
if that's not
male
a red
fragility,
flag.
right? God damn it. So, okay, so on January 29th of 2018, Khadijah, like many times before, had gotten into a fight with Fallis. She left and was picked up by her friend Felix, who took her to his grandmother's house, and it didn't take long for the 37-year-old Fallis to track down where 23-year-old Britton had gone. He appeared at... I'm sorry.
I'm trying to... So how old would she be? And he's 37?
She was 23 and he was 37.
Okay, that's quite a difference.
It is, especially when you've got this controlling, possessive,
drug
abusive,
addict.
Older drug addict piece of garbage.
So, yeah, okay.
So she ran to her friend Felix, who took her to his grandmother's house. Fallis tracked her down there pretty quick. He appeared at the grandmother's house screaming for his girlfriend to get out of the house. When Khadijah appeared in the doorway, multiple witnesses say he pulled her by the hair, yelled at her, telling her she was a whore. He then yanked the terrified Khadijah to the ground and dragged her toward a white Mustang. It was there that he punched her in the face and kicked her in the chest, and he then struck her in the head with a fucking hammer. Are we kidding? Is this even real? He then told the bloodied Khadijah to get in the car, and that if she didn't, or if she tried to escape, he'd kill her. So she obeyed. The pair continued to fight in the car, but his rage was also focused on Felix. So he got back out of the car to go confront Felix, and that's when Khadijah fled the car, hiding behind a tree stump in a neighboring field, and only came out after a furious Fallis drove away because he couldn't find her.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. What a night. That is the worst horror movie you could ever even remotely imagine. The next day at about 1 a.m., so it was actually later that evening, at 1 a.m. on the 30th of January, Khadijah banged on the front door of the house her dad and stepmother lived in with her and their young children. She was hysterical, bleeding, and bruised. She said he had attacked her at first with his fist and then a hammer. And she was screaming, "He's trying to kill me, he's trying to kill me," her stepmother said. And her stepmother says, she goes, "Get the babies on the floor, he's going to shoot up the house." At that point, they called the police, and Khadijah gave them a statement. So the next day, Khadijah's father took her to the tribe's domestic violence center, where a counselor took photographs of the bruising on her face and body and the lumps on her head. Together, she and a counselor, Yolanda Hoagland, crafted a restraining order against Fallis. Khadijah was given new clothes, a cell phone, and money for groceries and cosmetics so she wouldn't have to retrieve her things from his place. But unfortunately, she did. And when Hoagland showed up on February 5th to take Khadijah to Ukiah for the hearing, Khadijah was pretending to be asleep because I guarantee that piece of garbage threatened her or her family in some way, that if she did this, that he was going to kill her.
What's interesting is there was one report that Neggie's new girlfriend had taken her to redact the statements she had made against him. So obviously she was coerced. Her family must have been threatened in some way that if she didn't take back her statements, that somebody was going to end up very hurt.
Right. Yeah, because on February 7th, 2 days after the lady showed up to her house to take her to this hearing, she went to the tribal police, told them she didn't wish to proceed with the charges, and when she left the police station, she is alleged to have said, "I did it, girls, I did it, I dropped the charges," to the girlfriend, Antonia Bautista Dawson, and her twin sister, and then their mother, which I'm like, y'all are all garbage, so great.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to treat you like a fucking queen.
I'm sorry, your ex-boyfriend is a piece of trash who tried to kill you, and you're just going to let his new girlfriend take you to your court hearing against him?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a mess.
Well, it is. On February 10th, 3 days later, after not hearing from Khadijah for those days, her stepmother filed a missing persons report. And as is often the case with Indigenous women, police did not suspect foul play or believe there was a reason to be concerned. In fact, they said Britton had most likely gone back to Fallis and was hiding out with him. Maybe she didn't want to listen to her family nag her for going back to her ex. So we have somebody who has a history of reported abuse, and the police are saying, it's okay. She probably just doesn't want to hear you nag her. Just let her do it. Cool. So her family was frustrated, and they knew she was missing, and they asked police to, at the very least, put out a press release saying she hadn't been seen in a number of days, which they did, and it was only then that a witness came forward to report what they saw regarding her being dragged into the car by gunpoint. Because it's a hard situation. So police took custody of Neggie Fallis' mother's house and brought in the Department of Justice and the FBI to run forensics. They also searched a couple of other houses of interest, but no one knows what evidence, if any, was pulled from the houses in question.
Interestingly enough, one of the suspect's mothers was reported acting extremely weird.
Well, Neggie's mother. Neggie or whatever the hell.
Okay, anyway, that trash guy. His mother was suspected of acting extremely strange, and Khadijah's family, they had smelled a horrible smell coming from her house, and a couple of people had asked her, she had been burning something in these burn barrels for 2 days, right? And they asked, "What are you burning?" And she said that she was burning dead dogs that she had found. I'm sorry. Not once in my life have I heard of anybody going around collecting dead dogs and burning them in a barrel.
Why would you do that?
You don't.
Why would you take it upon yourself?
You don't. You're not the neighborhood roadkill guy.
Yeah. I mean, there were multiple witnesses on the reserve that noted that in the days immediately following her disappearance, that Neggie's mother was burning things in a burn barrel for 2 days.
And as we know, it takes a hot fire to burn a body. Like,
Yeah.
hot. And even then, you get it professionally incinerated, it's not gonna, the bones don't.
Right. Well, let's keep in mind that Khadijah had not been reported missing yet at that
Right.
point, officially. So Fallis and his mother were, if they were responsible for her disappearance, which, like, if is a, I have to say it just to say it,
yeah.
but if they're responsible for the disappearance and the murder of Khadijah Britton, they had more than enough time to destroy any evidence that they may have accumulated.
Well, also, finally, the police did go up there and wanted to see what she was up to. When they came to her house, she was painting it and spraying it out with a hose.
Yes.
I like to clean. I love to clean, but I'm never bringing in my hose to spray my house out.
Yeah, she said it was remodeling.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm like, yeah, this is just, oh my God. So, yeah. I mean, I'm like, I have to wonder, if I had a child, if they murdered someone, would I seriously go to that point? Like, what is this? Okay, I don't know. I guess that's irrelevant. So the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office conducted a large search and rescue operation in Covello on January 25th of this year, 2019, as part of the search for the missing Khadijah Britton, or her remains, after new pieces of information had come to light. She's obviously been missing for over a year now, so it's not super timely. Lieutenant Shannon Barney of the MCSO stated that we've had several pieces of information. I'd say it's numerous rumors, and that as a result of the MCSO, in conjunction with a variety of other search and rescue agencies, have launched a one-day search. So on that day, January 25th, they had 65 people plus cadaver dogs. They released a statement that they were not going to release the details of the search, but that they would return and conduct further searches if any new info was brought to light. So James Russ, the tribal president, says that we keep hearing that people know things about what happened to her, but they don't want to say. They're scared and intimidated. Our hope is that we as tribal leaders can lead by example, and we are asking people to please come forward. There is a $60,000 reward for information leading to the discovery of Khadijah Britton. If you have any information on the disappearance of her, contact the Mendocino County Sheriff's Dispatch Center at 707-463-4086 or the Sheriff's Anonymous Tip Line at 707-234-2100.
It's just unfortunate that it's pretty obvious what has happened, but...
Yeah, I mean, God, how blatantly obvious does it need to be? But it's just so amazing that even in 2019, we can have somebody witnessed forcing somebody into their car at gunpoint, and then they go missing, and then their mom is burning something horrible smelling, which she feels compelled to say is dog because everyone's like, I can tell it's a
carcass?
Freaking mammal. Yeah. And then she's spraying her house with a hose and repainting immediately following this all happening, and we're still left with, I don't know. And I have to wonder, is it because of the fact that Khadijah was a indigenous woman that they were not as prompt with their search? And like, because we obviously know they blew off her family's concerns about her being missing for a while and pretty much squandered the immediate timeline, you know, where we all know that the most important information, everything, evidence can be destroyed. I mean, who knows what was in those burn barrels, but it was likely a lot of stuff that will never be, you know, able to be used and may have completely squandered any chance of justice that her family or Khadijah deserves.
Right.
So, FML.
I think it's safe to say that because of her, what's the word?
Her socioeconomic position.
Yeah, just the position, you know, given to her history with drugs and the people probably there looking at that she associated herself with. Probably why they didn't pursue it as aggressively as I feel like they should have.
I absolutely believe that because that's what every single case that we have looked into regarding these missing and murdered Indigenous women is treated like, well, they were drug addicts, or, well, they were, you know, it's like, it's one of those things where, yeah, sure, that's part of the story, but that doesn't in any way mean that they deserved what happened to them, that they made it happen to them. Like, we are just a society of victim blamers here.
Right.
But obviously, I mean, all we can do at this point is keep her story alive, keep Heather's story alive, so that maybe one day somebody who knows something, because I know that from everything that I've read, the tribal communities tend to really not speak to anybody. It's what I have read numerous times from the tribal communities themselves, is that the individuals in these communities tend to stick together, but also, you know, they don't like to talk to anyone about things that they've seen. But obviously, there are people out there who have seen something being done to these women.
Right.
Obviously, we'll bring up any new updates that we can. Something can happen for the families of these women, because they all deserve, they both have, I guess Khadijah didn't have children, but Heather had children. She loved her children, and her children, more than anybody, I mean, her whole family, but more than anybody, her children deserve to know some sort of answer about what happened to their mother, and Khadijah's family deserves to know what happened to her as well.
Right, because she was a huge part of their life, and it seems like a really enjoyable part of their life, too.
Right. Right. And they definitely seem to just love her so much and support her as well.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that she happened to get entangled in this garbage human being's life.
Well, I mean, it's hard because, you know, especially just knowing, like, my aunt lives in Alaska, you know, and it's extremely secluded. The weather can be extremely depressing. The unemployment rates can skyrocket very quickly. And I mean, people are just left to their own devices. And drinking, drugs are extremely prevalent. And I think it's just out of boredom. And what do you do when that's all?
Boredom, hopelessness, coping
depression
with mental illness that doesn't get treated because you have no resources.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of compounding issues for sure, because there's not, as I said at the beginning, there's not the same amount. And we still, I mean, as a country, we have terrible mental health resources available for everybody. And for these tribal communities, it's even less available. So, you know, you have to, like, it's kind of like I know I did it alone, but when we talked about Amber Tukaro, how, you know, her brother was saying in order to investigate her disappearance, he had to be so proactive. Like, he didn't even know what steps he was supposed to be taking because there's no resources available for you. And I mean, it's the same thing for your mental health, for your abusive home situation. We just have to do better about this. Somehow we have to do better about this, because it is just terribly depressing and, like, more prevalent than I would ever hope to see. But yeah, I mean, that's all we have for these two women's stories. And obviously that's two pretty damning scenarios. I've already said it, but I mean, two extremely damning situations where there are two men who did something to both of these women.
Yeah.
And what the hell did they do? And how in the hell are they still out there just living their lives like nothing happened? That is ridiculous.
Well,
so if you know, you better come forward.
Yep, you can do it anonymously too.
Yeah, you can do it anonymously as heck.
Yeah.
And you can even get a reward. Like,
hello.
It's a runoff, go somewhere else. He doesn't have to know that you did this. So anyway, this is definitely like a shorter episode than usual. It's not fun at all. In no way is there anything to really make light of. Mm-hmm. So these are just two young women whose lives were stolen from them by a garbage human being. And please, 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 let's just hope that someday some answers can come out for their families. But yeah, that's it for Heather Cameron Haller and Khadijah Britton's stories. And if you know anything, if you have any questions or any thoughts, if you've heard anything, let us know or call the police.
Yes.
On the numbers that we stated. Okay, well.
That's all I have.
Depressing as heck, yeah. Well, next week we'll maybe have
Yeah.
something a little bit less depressing. I mean, maybe.
We'll
see.
see.
So, yeah. I think I need it, to be quite frank with you. I hope everybody is not worried about me that I have been talking nonstop about my mental health in the past few months, because that really has like been something that I have just been like yammering on about.
We're just aware, you know, and you know, it's
yeah.
been an interesting winter. It's just been very gray, and it's starting to kind of get better, but just ready for spring.
I'm okay, everybody, I promise. But, you know, maybe just letting you know that, hey, I have issues makes you feel like, okay, I'm not so alone here with my issues.
If you feel so inclined, you can send her Kit Kats and bangs.
I do love Kit Kats.
Yeah. Kevin last night was like, a Butterfinger sounds good. And I probably haven't had a Butterfinger in 5 years.
Oh.
And I think
so they redid the formula.
Did they?
Did you get one?
No.
Oh. Yeah, I saw a commercial the other day that they revamped it, and I was like, wait a second. What did you do? Yeah.
Why mess with something so delicious?
It was like Coke Zero redid their formula, and
which is trash, garbage.
I don't really understand what happened there, because it was good. It tasted great. I thought it was pretty clear that Coke Zero meant it had zero sugar, but for some reason, some derpers had to, I don't know what did they write in enough to Coke complaining about like how they needed something that had that stated it was zero sugar on the label in bright letters, and it tastes like somebody took it and ruined it, which they did.
They did.
But luckily for me, I don't really drink them that much anymore, honestly. But luckily for me, HEB has their own Coke Zero, and it tastes like the normal Coke Zero. Okay. So
I think the Cola Zevias are my favorite. Yeah. Those are good.
I don't really drink them that often. I like to drink kombucha if I'm going to have something sweeter, and sparkling water is my thing.
Your thing.
But anyway, so okay, well, I'm trying to think if there's like any little things about the pod that have come up. Well, we're almost so close. So our 1 year anniversary was Saturday. Thanks for joining us on our live. We have had like a bajillion people say, couldn't come to it. And I was like, I'm sorry. We really had kind of thrown around the idea of doing it on a weekday, because we thought Saturday night may not be the best, but then we didn't do that. And then literally all these people were like, why did you do it? So anyway, I think we're going to have to do another one. I told people we were going to do another one this week, but I'm not sure about that.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll let you know. I mean, if you don't follow us on social media, guys, like you're definitely missing out on updates about things like that. So I know.
And fire memes.
And fire memes. But I gotta say, we have a lot more listeners than we have followers on social media. So if you're out there listening and you're like, I really would love to see these babes talk to me live on, Instagram, go follow us on Instagram. You don't have to post anything. You can just follow us. And then you can go and check in on us here and there and see when we have sweet giveaways. We have live video. We sat there and talked on that live video for a flippin' hour the other day.
An hour. Actually, like Instagram timed out. They kicked us off.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had a great turnout, like, of people, because, the thing that kind of like, I never had done this before, so they just cycle in and out. So everybody just kind of like comes and goes as they please. So it's not like you have to sit there with us for a full hour. Some people did, though. Some of our truly dedicated babies did. But
dedicated babies.
You don't have to. But you'll never know that we're going to do this stuff unless you follow us on Facebook or Instagram. So go follow us on Instagram at Creep It Real Pod, Facebook, Creep It Real Podcast. I don't know. I think you can just look for Creep It Real. But you need to do it, or otherwise you're really missing out on some cool stuff. I mean, what if we were coming to your town to do a live show and you didn't know because you didn't follow us on Instagram or Facebook?
Hello. Or another giveaway, or just
we had a really cool giveaway where Amy Fegans won a butt ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And what happens if you don't get that? Like, that's really sad.
That's
so,
sad for
okay.
you.
It's definitely sad for you. Plus, who doesn't want to talk to us for an hour? Come on, everybody does.
Seriously.
So anyway, yeah. Instagram, do it. Creep or Ill Pod. If you want to email us with any suggestions, questions, comments, just glowing adoration, the email is creepitrealpod@gmail.com. And that might be it for me.
That's all I got.
We are getting a little more amped up on Patreon, and I still haven't decided if I want Casey Anthony to be a real episode or a Patreon episode, but you might want to go check out our Patreon.
Yeah.
I know that as it stands, we have just some episodes of us just talking about some random stuff for a while, but it's
worth it. And
it's
honestly,
definitely worth it. So anyway, well, I hope you guys had a great week, and I hope this wasn't just the most biggest bummer of your life to listen to, but these women deserve to have their stories told over and over and over and over and over until somebody comes forward with the truth of what happened to them. So anyway, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, creep it real.
Bye. Stay creepy out there.
Bye.
Bye.